All right. So, welcome, Michael. This is really cool to see you here, especially because you are graciously awake at 10:30 at night in Perth, Australia, and I have woken my brain up as much as I possibly can over here in Oregon at 7:30 in the morning. So we are literally spanning the earth right now. So
Yeah,
thank you for making this happen.
well, thank you. I really appreciate you inviting me. And it is funny to be like balancing the time zones. It's like a hard thing to make it work. And so, like, I'm glad we could make this happen.
Yeah, I think we couldn't be further apart. I've interviewed people from Melbourne before, and I thought, that extra 2 hours gives us a little bit of grace. But
Yeah.
I think Perth is just about as difficult as it possibly could be. So,
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm not sure if it still holds the title, but lots of people, Perth is the most isolated city in the world,
is
both
that
in
right?
Yeah, in that like the next major city is Adelaide, and it's on the basically the east coast of Australia. Like I don't know exactly what it is, maybe 4,000 kilometers away.
Mm.
And then there's the Indian Ocean, which eventually you would hit Africa. So
Wow.
there's just yeah, and I mean if you go down, it's Antarctica, and you'd have to go all the way up to like Indonesia. So it's like
Oh my God, I
it's
could spend an hour just talking to you about like what that does to a city. I mean, growing up in a town like Perth that's that isolated must have its own unique peculiarities because of that isolation.
Yeah, Perth is. I mean, like there's like a love-hate relationship to it in a way because like I love how beautiful it is, the beaches and the set. But there is a lot of things in which people come from America or bands or tours, and they do the east coast of Australia, and they miss WA because the time zone because they got to fly over, and it's
Mm.
also a lot of the people, well, the few people who have broken out and like so Heath Ledger was from Perth. There's not that many people who are from Perth, but they leave and they go to the East Coast and then they go off to America
Oh,
or England because it's like you it's hard it was harder then anyway to make a sort of name for yourself here.
yeah,
Now with
yeah,
the internet it's a lot easier, but yeah, it's a little bit like of a small it's not Perth itself isn't that small of a
yeah.
city. It's not like a country town or anything. It is pretty big. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's a bit of a weird experience.
Wow. Well, let's get into like maybe how some of that shaped you. I want to introduce for those of you that don't know Michael Edward, which actually I think is your middle name. Did you say
Yeah,
Edward?
Edward is my middle name. I'm not going to
Okay.
reveal my last name.
Nope, you don't
But
have to.
I just decided that that would be my sort of writing pseudonym.
Yeah,
Um,
I love it. So, well, you're definitely not somebody that we can neatly categorize. And one of the things I love about you, you're certainly a writer that's tackled chronic pain and addiction, identity issues, loss, creative rebirth. But all of these are just like stupid little labels. And as your Substack tells us, which is called the Curious Platypus, you are much more like a platypus. And you even wrote a really great essay about that. Strange, brilliant, unexpected. I love that I never know really what you're going to write about. And, but that I'm always like completely engrossed in those topics as soon as, I mean, even like horse racing. I'm like, why am I reading about horse racing? And why do I love this story so much? So I've come to know you as the creator of The Curious Platypus, but also the super brave, sometimes hilarious, and beautifully stubborn voice behind the Chronic Pain series. And it's a book that strangely it was full of heartbreak and full of healing, but it also kind of felt like a campfire story.
okay.
So you have this strange ability to make your storytelling feel like it's not just something that happened to you, but you want me to feel it too, to wrestle with it, to laugh at it. And I think that's a real gift of your storytelling. So
Well,
you
thank you. I
share.
appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Your curiosity and rebellion and tenderness and grit, all of that is part of this conversation. So welcome. And I want to open by talking a little bit about this platypus. And since you actually recently wrote about it, and as a symbol of resisting labels, even though I just gave you some labels there, and this uncategorizable nature of your identity. So, can you share a little bit more about why this creature felt like the right totem for your work, and how its spirit is sort of the way that you approach your life, not just writing, but also everything?
Yeah. Also, there's actually a few reasons why the Curious Platypus ended up as the name for the Substack. I've sort of always liked platypus, platypi.
I was
But
wondering that too.
yeah, so there's actually a few, the plural can be platypi or platypodes, apparently. Um, but yeah, so I wanted I thought it would be cool if there was a way to imply that I'm Australian with my Substack. And so the platypus works for that. There's also, which I'll get into the whole categorizing thing. But before I actually started my Substack, I was on it and I was like reading people's work. And I just kept like hearing this sort of like mantra that like, you have to have a niche, you have to have a niche, you have to have this sort
Mm,
of like, you know, this is what you're going to talk about. And that just didn't sit well with me because,
mhm.
as you already mentioned, I've written about horse racing, I've written about skateboarding, I've written about the universe, man. I've written about like platypus, I've written about pain. I kind of look at the world and there are things that excite me and interest me, and writing is a way for me to explore them and play with them and express them. And I just didn't want to limit it. And so I also thought it would be really cool if I could have a way to imply that without just like explaining it in a post. And so, like, if you actually read my about, I kind of, my about page on my Substack, I sort of hinted at it. But that was
Yeah.
another part of the reason, because
Yeah.
the platypus is just like the perfect animal to defy categories, in that when it was first discovered, they didn't know whether to like call it a mammal or a marsupial because it sort of has traits of both. And they ended up calling it a monotreme, which they made a whole new category for this animal, which to me is really funny because it kind of points at the fact that there's a way in which we kind of pull these categories out of our ass, where we're just like, I'm going to simplify this really complicated world by putting a box on this thing. And oh no, this other creature has come along and it doesn't fit in the box. And so I'm just going to make a new box so that we can now make it neat again. And
Yeah.
it's just like, I like the world is messy. And like at the time, I just finished studying philosophy at university, and philosophy just sort of breaks down a lot of your concepts about like any of the things that you hold blindly and you
Yeah.
just assume. And one of them was the arbitrary nature of categories. And so
Mhm.
all of those things sort of just like coalesced in that I had like different ideas for what it could
Yeah.
be, and it just felt like the right one. And there was also the fact that I did tell Evie about it, and she just said it sounded really cute and cool. And so like that was just
All three of those.
yeah.
And do you have them actually running around your backyard? I mean,
This hurts me, Kimberly. This is sad. So I like I said, I live in Western Australia. The platypi
yeah.
they only inhabit the east coast of Australia.
Oh
So
no.
they're on the other side of Australia from me. So I've never actually seen a platypus in person, like in the wild. It's one of the um it's one of my goals is to go to, like, I've been to the east coast, but they have like an actual platypus like sanctuary because they're an endangered species. There aren't that many of them anymore. They're quite
Mhm.
like a lot of habitat. They're breaking it down and tearing it down.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they have a sanctuary that I want to go to, and I'd love to get a photo of one and like see the actual animal because they're not as big as they're kind of confusing. Sometimes they look really big, like a small dog, but really most of them are like only the size of like a forearm, or like
Oh,
they're not that big,
yeah.
and yeah, they're not like what people would think like kangaroos. They're not all over the place.
So
in
you definitely have got to see one and write to us about it at some point.
that's when I do. It'll be like I'll probably just change my photo on my Substack to me with yeah. So it'll definitely happen. That's a major goal.
It really is the perfect animal for you. And I've only know you through what you've written and a few things that you've shared with me. But what I do know is, and you're young and you have so much life experience, and that's these boundaries, these assumptions that we make about human beings. Somebody would never be able to put you into a box, knowing all the things that the few things that I know about you, and that's exciting. And I know that those labels, those parts of you, are going to continue to just expand because of this curious mind that you have.
Yeah, there's so another somewhat famous. I don't know if you would know who he is. Another famous. He's like a writer, a theater person, an actor. He's done a bunch of musician. His name's Tim Minchin.
Uh
He
huh.
is from Perth, Western Australia, but he's like known in the world stage. He once said that he has tried his whole life to be un-pigeonholeable. Like he
Mm,
doesn't want to be put into a box and I just like it really really resonates with me. And yeah,
mm,
the platypus just works for that
yeah,
because yeah, I don't know if we was
yeah,
recording then or not, but I've lived there was a few different iterations of my life so far, and I like the idea of there being many more, and I don't want to be tied down by or defined by any one of them.
yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the chronic pain series revealed a lot to me about you, but there was also a new quality that I discovered, this depth of relationship, this softness that I experienced when you talked about your grandfather in the story As Sure as Seven Sevens, As Sure as Seven Sevens.
Yeah.
And this story, he tricked you into believing that you were lucky, which is just, I mean, this is just so touching. Like, what a cool grandpa. I'm going to start crying. Especially what this did for you, how it helped you believe when you really needed to believe. And I want to know, how did that, carrying that sense of luck that he tricked you into believing that you had, how did that work in your favor in your life?
um that's a good question. So yeah, my granddad sort of made me feel lucky in a bunch of different ways, but I talked about how he used to ask me to pick horses, and then I was like a kid and would be at the horse track, and he'd go off and supposedly put money on the horse that I picked, and then he'd come back and say the horse won, and I get a share of the winnings. But like I later realized that there's no way I picked the horses correctly with that much regularity. And he was sort of just like, yeah, making me feel special and lucky. But the way that I think that has helped me is because I really did like believe it. Like I believed for a long, I mean, still believe it, but I believed that I was lucky. And there've been a bunch of things that have happened in my life that I consider to be really lucky. I could give examples, but I mean, like for one or two examples, I was lucky enough to go to my local skate park was a skate park where there was a few guys who ran a small skateboard company in Perth, and I ended up getting sponsored by them.
Mm,
I won a few, like some, like in local, I won some local skateboarding competitions. I've, been picked out of crowds for certain things. Like I've been lucky in random ways, like with horse betting and like, but yeah, and because I actually think because I believed that I was lucky, it was like a
yeah,
self-fulfilling prophecy in
yeah.
that believing that I am just made me luckier than I was or
Mm,
luckier than I otherwise would have been. And I also think that I sort of, um, whether I just perceive that I'm lucky or I am lucky is kind of irrelevant because I feel that I am. And
mm,
so there have been things that have happened. So, like, this wasn't in the pain series, this was before it. But when I was still working as a tradesman, I actually broke my right wrist skateboarding. And I didn't want to work as a tradesman. I didn't want to work as a tradesman at all. I kind of fell into it. It was this thing that happened, and yeah, I was not really that happy doing it. And when I broke my wrist, like I had enough time off that I had to think about what I was doing and what I wanted to do. And in that time, like I decided that I wasn't going back to the building site and that I was going to go to uni
Mm.
because I'd always just sort of felt like I wanted, and I didn't go to uni because I'm going to study philosophy and become a philosophy professor. I just wanted to know more about the world, and like philosophy interested me. And I was just, so I left
Wow.
my profession of like 10 years as a tradesman at 29 and decided to go to uni because I broke my wrist. And then because I went to uni, I met Evie at uni. I started
Mm-hmm.
writing because of uni. And so like breaking my wrist was like a really lucky thing.
Yeah.
If the way I perceive it,
Right.
you know. And so there's lots of things like that. Like I thought of a kind of another good example in that if I hadn't hurt my back and I hadn't wrote the chronic pain series, I don't know if I'd be having this conversation with you. And I
Yeah.
consider myself lucky to be having the conversation with you. And so it's like the luck is kind of there if you're like willing to see it, or
Mm-hmm.
if you're. So yeah, but yeah, I've definitely carried it, and it's definitely helped.
Well, it really does. You said that perfectly, and it reminds me of how even if I'm like, for example, when I'm writing an essay, I will think about in defense of, I'll be thinking of an idea. And that whole month, it'll be like, I'm thinking about longing. And it will, everything I start to see or everything that comes to me is in that frame then of longing. And so it just goes to show that the world is so much of how we are perceiving it. And sure, there are things outside of our control and we can't experience everything the way we want to see it, but that there is an overlay of how we are orienting ourselves. And it sounds like not a lot of people would say a broken wrist and a broken back. Chronic pain would be good luck, but it's really seems like it shaped you in a way to continue seeking the luck in unlucky situations.
Yeah, it's sort of as if it helped me still see the silver lining in things that I may not otherwise have seen, or it
Yeah.
gave me a different way to frame them. And that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that like when I first hurt my wrist or hurt my back, I was like, "Yeah, this is going to be wonderful. Something good's going to come." Like I was definitely not happy about it,
Yeah.
but over time, it's a good, as you said, with your noticing things when you're writing about a certain essay, you are able to frame the world through the way you like. You almost have a filter, and
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of yeah. I actually have two things I have to say. I love your In Defense of series. I really
Oh,
enjoy it. It's always so enjoyable to read, and you
oh,
just like
thank you.
the things that you like. Yeah, I also like the things that you defend or pick to, because some of them like wouldn't be things that people feel as though they need defending, but that, and I like that. Um, but yeah, I heard something about luck, or not luck, but that noticing things situation where I can't remember what the name of it is, but there's a part of the brain that will like if you decide that this is the stuff I'm going to focus on, your brain will start to like pay attention to those sorts of things,
Mm.
and that's the sort of like sciencey way of saying it. I also think there's a way in which if you decide to focus on these things, the hippie spiritual way of saying it is that the universe sort of like takes you that way,
Yep.
and I'm open to both.
Yeah, absolutely. I straddle both as well, the science and the mystical. I think there's room for both of those since we know very little on this planet anyway.
Definitely,
So,
definitely.
but it's fascinating to me because, here you write in the chronic pain series, you literally said, I want to run, I want to hide, I want to escape this agony, but no matter where I go, there seems to be no way out. So you're falling to the very bottom of, and that's just one sentence of many, many chapters where you talk about this excruciating pain and the way that it bleeds over to your mental anguish. And here we are talking about luck, your lucky life. I want to know during those deep, deep, dark nights of the soul, was it harder for you to deal with the physical reality of the pain or more of the psychological challenges that it built? Or did that shift for you over time?
Um, this, I mean, this is pretty the easy. This is an easy answer for me in that it was definitely harder mentally for me. I've had pain, like, so I've broken my ankle skateboarding, I've broken my wrist skateboarding, I've knocked myself out, I've like working as a like 12-hour days, like I've had pain plenty.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I enjoy pain or I'm some sort of masochist. It's just I think I've sort of always been somewhat up in my head,
Yeah.
and so like the the uncertainty, the worries, the what ifs, the different like diagnosis from different doctors or specialists, the like what does this mean for like my future? Am I always going to be like this? Will I be able to work? Will I be able to skate? Like, how is this going to affect my relationships? Just
Yeah.
I definitely ruminated and spiraled for, you know, I don't know how, like a large period of it. Um, and so I did say something towards at the end of that pain series to the effect of like my resistance to the whole situation, which essentially was made it much harder than, I mean, I don't think I could have done this either, but like made it much harder than if I had just been like, there's a sensation of pain right now, full stop. I'm not going to dissect and figure out and try and solve and fix and plan what that means for the rest of my life. But that, you know, that would have been a very hard thing to do as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that, so yeah, for me, it was definitely the mental.
That's the same for me. I totally agree. And I find it so fascinating that, I mean, still to this day, right now, I'm dizzy, and it's certainly not to the same degree that it was 8 years ago, but there is a completely different orientation with it. And because of that orientation of like, I don't have to fix this, and like, why the fuck is this happening to me? It doesn't affect me the same way either. So is this blending of the physiological and the psychological.
Yeah. So, I mean, I relate completely to what you said in that there was, I mean, I still have some pain now. I've actually had like a flare up recently, which is kind of funny to call it a flare up because it was pretty fucking shit.
Yeah.
And I was like off work for 4 months from December to April. Like it was rough.
That's a
I wasn't,
bonfire.
yeah. Yeah, bonfire's better. But that idea that you said of like, I still get dizzy, but it doesn't affect me as much, or affects me differently. I heard somebody, I wish I could attribute, but I can't. I heard somebody eventually say that like there's a difference between like hurt and harm. So once I started to like understand that even though there's pain, I'm not actually like it's not harming my body. It's like it's not like I've broken my arm and the bone's sticking out, and if I like move the wrong way, the bone's gonna like damage tendons or whatnot. It's just like there's pain because of like whether it's the discs or the inflammation or it's just the emotional stuff hasn't been resolved. There's pain, but there's not harm, and so
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about what it means for the rest of my life, what it means for how I'm going to cope, and because it's gone for like 4 years now. I also know it more intimately, and I know, okay, I know what to do to like calm it down. I
Yeah.
lay down and I breathe, or like there's certain things that like there's certain pain I need to lay down and I need to actually like immobilize. And then there's other pain where I need to actually like move and exercise. Like I'm sitting in the position I'm sitting, like I'm up in my bed, but I'm kind of like reclined because it takes a bit of pressure off of like my back is like sitting just straight up. I don't find it very comfortable. And I didn't want to do that for like an hour or however long this would go for. But yeah, I totally resonate with the changing of it, like how you actually meet the experience.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were saying about luck. And it is, I truly believe that for me, when I finally was like, okay, this is hurt but not harm, my brain was able to chill. As long as I was saying, oh my God, this is going to change everything in my life. And why can't I do this? And I need to fix it. I need to go away. My brain was basically, because it's designed to do this, it's saying, oh shit, she's in danger. She's in danger. So we better focus entirely on this and release all the arsenals that I have in order to protect her from this. So she's going to become hyper vigilant. And it's just the brain doing what it's meant to do as long as we're telling it that something is a really big, fat problem. But if we're like, here's the pain again, or here's the dizziness again, it goes, oh, looks like it's not such a big deal. So I guess I'll focus on something else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I've heard other people say that, and I have the same experience in that you throw your back out, and then you're scared to bend forward. You're scared to bend over. You're scared to sit down. You're scared to do a bunch of things, and then the fear of like, oh God, I have to sit for an hour or I have to bend down makes you tense. Your
Yeah.
brain is tense, and then your muscles tense up, and then you sit and it grabs. And
Yeah.
it didn't actually grab because there's an issue with bending forward. It grabbed because you're freaking yourself out and you're telling your body to grab before it's just like, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe some doctors would say it did grab because you bent forward, but like for me, it's definitely felt as though it was the latter. And
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah,
So for people that are listening and going, okay, I want to, there's a huge trajectory here, and you talk about this so beautifully in your book. I know you saw everybody just like I did, physiotherapists, chiropractors, I mean, psychics, the same thing. And, and all of that often contributes just to more of that spinning. So
yeah.
how did you get to that place of trusting yourself again, to the sort of the grounded center where you were like, yeah, okay, this is pain and pain and what else is happening here? How did you get to that place?
Um, I'd like to say I did it gracefully, but I think really I did it like kicking and screaming and like trying to look for like every bit of logic and reason and understanding I could find. And eventually, when so many different doctors or specialists or physios or whoever it was told me like conflicting information, it's like, well, they can't all be right. And so I don't know who to trust. And I've tried this thing and I've tried that thing and none of them seem to have worked. And I haven't tried them for a week. Like I've really committed to trying these things and they haven't seemed to work. And so like I got to that place of trusting myself because I felt like I'd exhausted all options
Mm-hmm.
and the only option left was to like do what felt right for me. And I didn't always know what felt right for me, but what felt right for me essentially was like the people who I was seeking help from. It was words that they said, or like what you just said a second ago about the way your orientation changed. It's like people would say something and it aligned with my experience, and I'm like, this feels right. This feels like where I need to go.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, it was basically because I exhausted all options, and I felt like, well, now I have to, it's thrown back on me, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I totally relate. And in a
I
way,
imagine you would, yeah,
it's lucky that none of them were able to help you.
yeah. It is. There's also this thing of like you're looking outside of yourself for the help always. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like there's a point where like, well, maybe I need to help me,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know? But that's just not I don't expect myself or most people that to be the initial reaction. You're
Yeah.
going to have to stumble your way there.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. You also described too, one of the things that you ended up doing was just curling up in fetal position and crying. I mean, some of those descriptions and the way that you went there were so powerful and so true to the not needing to know, but just the allowing of the feeling and going there, and the trust that you had in that part of the process was pretty tremendous. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it kind of goes to the same thing as this. Like, I got to this point where I didn't really know what else to do. And I didn't, I was still doing like the exercises, and like I was decided I wasn't getting surgery at that point, and like, but, and so like doing the journaling and doing the therapy and like crying in a ball or curling into a ball and crying, I wasn't sure if they were exactly going to help or not, but they they felt right.
Yeah.
And so it was the same thing. I didn't think they could hurt as well. Like they weren't going to harm me. And like, I don't think it's like a radical idea to think that if you feel better mentally, you're going to feel better physically. And
Mm-hmm.
so that felt like the right thing to do. And
Mm-hmm.
there was probably a point where, well, there was a point where I also sort of realized that I am causing myself a lot of this suffering with my mind and the way I'm handling it. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying I should have handled it better, but it's just like, is there a different way I can meet this? And is it possible that I can like go in and find a way out?
Right.
And like in going in, I found a whole bunch of like tears and things to cry about, but I guess that was the way through. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was sort of,
Yeah, I love how you just said that. And isn't it
yeah,
interesting that that going in, which is kind of makes so painful, but you still said that that was what felt right. Isn't it interesting that going towards the pain can sometimes be what feels the most right?
yeah, it's so strange because you will resist it and you resist it and you resist it, and then eventually you're like, well, maybe like I'm like causing myself more suffering and resisting it. So if I don't resist it and I like open myself up to it, like that's you have to exhaust all other options first, and then you like open yourself up and you're like, oh, well, now that I'm like actually open to it, there's almost like a space or a lightness that wasn't there before, and that's super helpful. And I just,
Yeah.
but yeah, did you have that sort of like,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. But for me, it came not through. It's interesting because crying, like any sort of emotional, I had to sort of flatline myself because anything on the extreme, whether it was too much excitement or too much sadness, would just make the dizziness like so freaking bad.
yeah, okay,
Part of this is, there's a vestibular migraine aspect to malady debarkment. And so when you get any kind of inflammation up here, it just like sends the nerves into chaos. So for me, the the process was I got into needle felting, and it was just this
yeah, I
craft that
remember, yeah,
focused me and calmed me, and it being allowing the shapes that I was crafting to express what I was unable to express myself was part of, I think, what you were doing. And even my first, you know what, Michael, I'm just realizing it's sitting over there. My very first needle felted creature was in a fetal position.
oh wow,
And I needed that. That was like, and it's like, no, I'm going to cry again, but I needed that position. I needed to feel like I was completely I needed to feel safe again. And something about that fetal position was like the most safe for me.
yeah. There's, I have to say two things there that are super interesting. The first thing was that when I actually cried, the pain was really bad. So like,
Mm,
and that was really like it was worse than just normal. And so like I would cry and I would wail, and it would almost like the pain would almost yell or flare up. I would feel it surge around, and that was just like I was very curious and interested about that. That was super strange.
huh.
And so then I'm like, that it made me really feel as though they're connected in this
Yeah.
way that I hadn't realized before. And so then that made me like kind of go deeper into that. Like, okay, let's keep crying. Let's go really into this, because I don't. It didn't feel as though I was going to hurt myself. It just felt as
Mm.
though the pain and the tears and emotions were all connected. And so
Uh-huh.
that kind of when I said it felt like the right thing to do, it definitely felt like the right thing to do after that, because I'm like putting all of that together. Because I would get
Yeah.
up eventually after the crying session and I'd feel a little lighter. And that was like,
Mm.
oh, there's a probably the way in which you felt while you was doing the felting. You sort of just like have dropped the worrying. You felt a little lighter, and then
Mm-hmm.
you begin normal life again, and you kind of pick it back up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the second thing that I wanted to say is that there's a lot of things I realize now that I didn't add to that chronic pain series that I wish I did. And I think maybe one day, like, I'll actually try and write like a much larger, extensive thing that goes more into addiction and other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But like one of the things that really helped me in that time was I did a whole bunch of like drawing. I wouldn't call myself like an artist, but like I like to draw. I did cartooning and stuff when I was a kid. Like I've done a lot of drawing, and I, in the same way that your first felt creature was in the fetal position, I kept drawing up essentially the same picture. It was always a different. There was always a central image. The central image could have been like an animal. It could have been like a platypus or a lion or whatever. There was like an animal or some central image, and that was always black and white. And then there was always patterns behind it, and all the patterns were like vibrantly colored. And I actually read it in like I think it was Stephen King's book. He mentioned that he would draw these things, and they would have this sort of, I don't know. I made the connection somehow through something he said or something, but it was that I was showing the world just this like black and white version of me, and there was all this like color that I didn't want to show because it was like there's this sensitive side and this like weird philosopher likes platypus side,
Mm-hmm.
and but that was there behind, and it was like my unconscious was like trying to let me know that somehow because I
Totally.
have like 20 images and they're all black and white central and then color at the back, and then eventually
Huh.
I kind of started to cotton onto that as well, and that became another thing. And I didn't
Wow.
really do it consciously, but I drew an image where there was color at the front, and then like I started like
Wow.
yeah, things like that. But yeah, that was something I realized later that should have been in my
Oh,
pain
man, you
series.
know, you just, okay, so I used to volunteer at a bereavement center for kids
Okay,
and young
wow.
adults that have lost parents and siblings and all of that. This isn't a kid that was in my group, but they always told this story. They have lots of arts and crafts and rooms and stuff for these kids to explore their emotions, especially the younger ones that don't like to sit in talk circles and all that. One kid, his dad had been murdered, and he was like I think 4 or 5 years old, and he would every time he showed up he would just go into the room with the paint, and he would just take the black paint and he would just like do whatever squiggles and all of that stuff all over the walls, and a year it was the only color that he wanted, just black, 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 black.
Wow.
After a year, one day he walked in that same room. No, he never verbalized any of what he was experiencing or anything. He walked in, he asked for the whole thing of paint, and he just
Oh
splashed
wow.
rainbows all over those walls. And I'm like, come on, man. I mean, what a testament to time and to just that power of the intelligence of what's coming from within, and it knows. And art is such a great way for us to just get out of our way and go, yeah, I'm just going to do this right now. And outside of here, there can be all these colors, and it'll, when it's time, they're going to come in.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing how like art almost gives you like a window into yourself in a way
Mm-hmm.
that you don't even realize that you think you're just like making a picture or writing a story, but
Yeah.
like that the story about my granddad, like that was I read that out to my mom. She doesn't read my Substack or anything, but I read it out to my mom, and like when I read it to her, like I kind of teared up, and it's just like interesting how like yeah, art like helps us like pull things out of us that we didn't even know were in there,
Oh,
and
totally.
in a time of like distress or when you're trying to heal or figure things out, it's like I think it can be super helpful. Like I
Yeah.
know that there are things like art therapy for that reason, but
Mm-hmm.
I again like I didn't do it for that reason. I did it probably for the same reason you did, and it was like it was just a distraction in that it helped you
Mm-hmm.
not ruminate and worry and think about things,
Yeah.
which is wonderful in and of itself. But the fact that it like reveals things to you, like yeah, it's like the intelligence is always there telling you stuff if you are like paying attention.
Yeah.
and
Yeah. It's
willing to
always in
hear it.
hindsight for me. I think some people have that ability to have like this oversight and they're able to analyze while they're doing it. But for me, it's always after, like sometimes years later, like the insights don't come right away. And I like it that way because my brain otherwise would just get too involved and that's stupid.
Yeah, it's always after for me as well. There was uh, I hate to do this, but so there's a philosopher, Soren Kierkegaard,
Yeah.
and he said that life is understood backwards, but it has to be lived forwards. And it's just like
Yeah.
it's
I
just like
love
yeah,
that.
it resonates.
Yeah. On our deathbeds, we'll understand it all, Michael.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to, coming back to, you did, so you wrote even the chronic pain series, are you saying largely from sort of this intuitive place, even though there was so much insight in there? Or was this, where were you with the pain when you were writing it?
So essentially, I had the major issue with my chronic pain ordeal in like 2020 and 2021. That was like the worst of it. And then I wrote it in the middle of 2024. And 2022, 2023, like there was pain, but it wasn't that bad. Like I was skateboarding, I was dry, like everything was pretty good. I shit you not. The week that I posted the last piece of the pain series is when I had this flare up that has made, and the pain that I've had since I posted it in like December or whatever it was until now has been as bad as it was in 2020. And like I've been off work and all of that sort of stuff, and yeah, like managing it in different ways. But like obviously it's a lot different now because I know a lot more. I'm able to handle it in different ways. And one of the biggest differences is like I just sort of met Evie then, but now like Evie is my partner and I live with her and she has just been so freaking amazing and helped so much that like I don't really know how I got through it the first time without her.
Wow.
Somehow I did, obviously, but like this time she's just made it so much easier.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wow.
that was sort of the timeline. But yeah, I wrote it when I was actually in a pretty good spot.
Uh
But by the
huh.
end of it, I was in like not as a good
So it's
spot. But
like your psyche's like, okay, now let's test it again after you've had all this wonderful insight.
yeah, I mean, this recent flare up was sort of there was a lot of the same lessons. Like, funnily enough, I think the first line I wrote, like, or in the pain series, was that like you should never help someone out on the weekend. And like I agreed to help out someone and do a gyprock job on the weekend, and like after that, like my back bothered me again, and so like I'm never
Oh,
fucking helping anyone out on the weekend ever again. But just yeah, like I made a lot of the same mistakes. I started like going like asking everybody, seeking outside myself. Like maybe this time I just need to get an injection. Like it was different. There was some like sciatica pain this time, which I hadn't had last time, and so that worried me because I'm like, well, it's going down. Sciatica is when it goes down your leg, pain
yeah,
like from
yeah.
the nerve, yeah, and that worried me because it never happened before. And but yeah, like
Wow.
a lot of the same lessons, and I was like, I thought I learned this, and it's just like, no, you've got to keep going deeper, and you've got to like keep it up. This isn't this thing that you just this new way of being. You don't just like learn it and then get over it and then just ignore it and get back to life. Like I have a bit of a well, not a bit of a like I'm kind of like go go go. I'm very like driven and sort of like conscientious and like it's like, I'm gonna ride and we're gonna save money, we're gonna do this thing. Or it's just like I used to be like I'm gonna get drugs, I'm gonna get alcohol, I'm gonna gamble. Like it didn't matter what it was, I was gonna do shit.
Yeah, yeah.
And my body is like, I need you to learn how to just relax. Like do some coloring in, go for a swim, just even speak slower, just relax a bit. And that's a lesson like I seem to be constantly learning.
Is that
And
what? Sorry, I want to know because I actually my question was about like what was this pain saying to you, or if you could sit across from the pain that you're now experiencing again, what would you say to it, and then what is it saying back to you? But you might have just answered that.
yeah, well, I mean, I guess I have to answer. Like, if I could, at first I just tell it to leave me the fuck alone, please. But on a
Totally.
on a like more serious level, I would I would thank it because it's sort of like it's driven me deeper into myself. It's helped me understand things that I wouldn't have. I don't think I would have like investigated my past and like trudged up these emotions and tried to understand myself. I don't think I'd be I don't think I'd be like having this conversation with you, expressing myself authentically about like why I love like platypuses and I used to color in. Like I don't think I'd be like a lot more closed off and walled off and wondering what people are going to think of me or what expectations or it's helped me flourish a lot
Yeah.
internally or
Yeah.
spiritually or mentally. But as far as like in the real world physically, like it's limited my ability to do certain things or skate as much. And so like I have a love-hate relationship to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I suspect I know it feels to me that what it's always telling me is to be patient, to slow down, to like, because a part of the reason I'm always pushing myself is because I definitely have had feelings of like not being good enough and like needing approval. And so it's like I'm pushing to like do more and be better. And it's like, slow down, calm down, relax.
Mm-hmm.
You're enough. Everything's okay. You're safe. And I also think that it would sort of just say to me, like, you're welcome. You needed that.
Wow.
And it would kind of be a little cocky. And I would be like, yeah, well,
You're welcome.
yeah. So yeah, it's a weird relationship, isn't it? To have like but
Yeah, yeah, but wow. I mean, you reminded me when you just shared that a little bit of Dylan's story. That you've watched some of his stuff around
yeah,
with the ALS. He's, gotten also to this point of just saying thank you to this extraordinarily debilitating disease, and the way that shapes us and is everlasting. And you and I both will go through periods of our lives where we'll feel more pain, more dizziness, more, and we'll have our relationship with that. But I think as we continue on and kind of hold hands with it and say, all right, what is it this time? And it doesn't mean we can't be human and go, God damn it, go away. But it really does change how we relate to it as a guide in a way. We talk about like guardian angels. Well, what if our pain is a form of a guardian angel? you know.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's what I really love about your work with Unfixed. And it's just like, I don't have to be fixed in the traditional sense of things to live like a happy, fulfilled life. And I
Mm-hmm.
also don't even know now that if I had I don't know, it's so hard. I go back and forth on this all the time, but I don't know now that if I had the option to just never have this pain and to have just carried on the way I was, if I would choose that. Because I don't know like who I'd be or where I'd be. And I'm happy with where I am.
Yeah.
And I want to go down this road. And like you said, it's like, why can't suffering be something that guides you?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be like bliss and rainbows? And it's also Evie said something the other day. It was just like I feel like she's always saying profound things, but she said that like you was never guaranteed like some pain-free, comfortable life. You
Mm.
never. That was never. There was never like you like signed up for that. You don't. You're not guaranteed tomorrow, and so it's just like people like Dylan's story. These people who like just say yes to it no matter what is like it's so
Yeah.
moving and like there's like an enlightenment almost to that
Yeah.
approach that like. And I don't think you could get there if you weren't pushed to.
No.
I
No,
don't know,
you're
maybe
right.
some, but and so it's kind of like, and that's why I'm lucky. I'm thankful for it. It's a positive thing if
Yeah.
I choose to frame it that way, and that is a legitimate way that I can frame it.
You have such a philosophical mind too, and I feel like this very, very bright, very intelligent, and deeply like penetrating. And I have a sense that, this journey is asking you, this companion is always asking you to nurture that part of yourself, because you're obviously also very athletic, and you could just be out there doing your thing and join the jackass crew, and and never really have to go deeper. But it's almost like this pain is going, there's something else here. I want the whole Michael, and that's going to involve this deeply philosophical aspects of you. That's how
Thank
I
you. I
perceive you.
appreciate that. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I was drawn to philosophy for a reason. I sort of like what it was at university wasn't exactly what I was looking for. That was a bit more like academic,
Mm,
like analytical than I guess I'm looking for more of a how to live, what's the right
mm-hmm.
way, and what's the correct deeper, well, not correct, but like what's right for me. And like, so the philosophy, the ideas in philosophy that did resonate with me was existentialism,
Yeah,
which I don't know how much you know about that, but is
yeah,
essentially like
totally.
the simplest explanation is that, existentialists said that like, you know, there isn't like an inherent meaning to life. You have to find and make your own meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's what I've been trying to do since I was like 7, and I just didn't realize it. And I've done it with skateboarding, and I did it, and then like lots of people, I heard something about like people who become addicts. It's not just that they're like falling for some substance; it's that they're in a meaning crisis. They are like lacking that, and the whatever they use is the
Mm-hmm.
thing that fulfills it, or at least pseudo fulfills it. And so yeah, like
Yeah,
I
the way my husband describes it is existence precedes essence. And a lot of
yeah.
the religions say essence precedes existence, but it's like you said, we make our meaning. And there's something incredibly freeing about that.
Freeing and terrifying,
Yeah.
because now I have to do it. Now I have to like figure this out. But yeah,
Yeah.
both of them wonderfully. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh boy, Michael, I want to ask. So we've we've covered so much ground, and there's this returning to pain as you just experienced. That you wrote about it, then you were sort of free of it, then you're returning to it. You've talked about a little bit about the addiction and this creative rebirth that happened through some of the dark night of the soul. After everything you've been through, has this definition of healing changed for you? Healing is such a wonderful and awful word at the same time. So, what does healing look like to you now, and how is that shaping as you move forward?
Well, I definitely think it's important to focus on like the ing part of it, like healing as opposed to healed. I think it's a constant thing, and I think part of where I slipped up, at least with this recent flare up, is that I just felt like I was over it and I could get back to like being busy and pushing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, healing is like it's it's this there's it's like I I know in myself in a way that's hard to describe that there's still more to do, and that like I
Mm,
have to figure out, and that I have to understand, and that like I know there's a more authentic me that needs to be expressed, that hasn't let himself express, like I haven't let myself express yet. And I try to do that, and a part of like my healing is like allowing that little 7-year-old kid who like I haven't already said this before, but like I learned to sort of be like a chameleon. Like I could blend in and fit in and say what needed to be said to get by, or to not be bullied, or to like appease my parents, or whatever needed to be done. But it wasn't what I felt and what I believed and what was true to me. And so like a lot of that I think, uh, added to or exacerbated like the emotional things that like led to the tension and led to me pushing too hard, and like, because it's like now I can chameleon really well and get approval, but it's like all of that has to go away so that
Yeah.
I can let my true, whatever that is, my true self out. That's where the healing is for me.
Hmm.
It's not really even a physical thing, because like I'm going to heal myself physically until my body dies. Like it's like, so what I need to like heal my soul so it can go wherever it goes next with
Mm.
more, I don't know, peace or solace or whatever it needed to do and learn here. So yeah,
Yeah.
my idea with healing at the first, it was like I want to fix my body.
Yeah.
And after this whole experience, it feels like I want to heal my whole being.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you've written about that. You are in the process of that. And it's almost like healing becomes, instead of sort of this endpoint, it's just a discovery. It's the title of your Substack. It's the Curious Platypus. It's the discovery, but also the constant pushing of boundaries. And it seems like your boundaries are endless. And man, I'm excited to see all the different ways that you're able to express that and share that with the world, because I already knew you were special by reading you, but talking to you today, it's like, wow, there is a really deep thinker in there. So
Well,
what
thank
an
you.
honor.
I really appreciate that. That's so lovely. And like I have to say, like I said before, I love your work. And like it's actually, there were the amount of times I read something that you wrote and I was like, oh my God, she just said it like so perfectly. I wish I had of like, that's exactly how I experienced that. That's how I
Mm-hmm.
felt that. And it's resonated with me so much. And like, I'm really appreciate that I was able to like have the conversation with you. And yeah, there's a reverence that like there's a few people on Substack like you definitely have it, like Holly Starley is like that, Chloe I just want to say her name, Chloe
Mm-hmm.
Hope. There's a few people like you guys have this reverence for life in that you're like open to it and you appreciate it and you're like in awe of it in this way that I like marvel at.
Mm.
And I don't know if it comes with like age, but it feels like you're inspiring to me in your authenticity and your boldness to say it and feel it and live it in a way that just feels so, yeah, authentic.
Mm.
And I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Wow, what amazing company. Holly and Chloe, my two favorite people.
Yeah, they're lovely.
Yeah. Michael, this was just incredible. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope you get a good night's sleep.
Thank you. I hope you wasn't up too early.